You are with the University of Karate, and we're here with Sensei Mike Biddle, and we're looking at a very interesting topic that I believe is going to be beneficial to those that are listening. And again, we want to, as we begin this talk today, we want to thank those that have been subscribing, liking the videos, making comments. We really appreciate those that are making comments that are positive and negative. We appreciate comments. We appreciate dialogue. We appreciate the opportunity to create conversation. And this is why I believe Sensei Biddle has been sharing his insights, his testimonies, his thoughts, because he wants to create a environment in which people are developing and looking at things that maybe are being lost, which goes into our topic this morning. We're looking at a topic that basically is, are we losing the arts in martial arts? Are we losing the arts in martial arts? Now, again, this could be a number of different talks along these lines. And when we talk about the term martial arts, we know that martial means military arts. Most people that are practicing martial arts today are not necessarily in the military. They're not really doing a lot of different things that are done in the actual military. But they do have an origin. The martial arts have an origin there in the military arts. We, in a previous study, talked about how Jigoro Kano revolutionized what we know as martial arts because of his desire to take jiu-jitsu that in the Japanese society in his day was looked down upon. When the Meiji Restoration took place and the samurai class was kind of taken out of their position and lost their caste, they weren't allowed to carry the sword. They weren't allowed to do what they had trained all their life to do. It kind of threw these people into a position where many felt like they were forced into crime. Whether you want to look at history and see the origin of the Japanese mafia, the Yakuza, has origins along those lines. The origins of the ninja go along the same way, where people with these skill sets were not allowed to do their work in the military. The martial elements were kind of outlawed when the Japanese society tried to restore and become more westernized. And also some people became highway robbers, where they would waylay people on the road and so on. And because of it, many of the arts, including jiu-jitsu, that was associated with the samurai became looked down upon. People that practiced jiu-jitsu were looked upon as thugs and troublemakers and people that were not to be trusted and so on and so forth. Not only did Jigoro Kano create a system of dress using the gi, a belt system that all martial arts basically adopted, the idea of being organized, an organized structure when it comes to martial arts. But also Jigoro Kano made a tremendous PR restoration of martial arts by his attempt to try and make jiu-jitsu, in making it judo, a reputable art, because he put the art, the idea of budo, into these practices. That's where you get the term judo, the gentle way. And that term way, do, is the same word in the Chinese, which is Tao, where you get Taoism, the yin and yang symbol. It's that concept of harmony, the concept of peace. But in the Japanese mindset, it was the warrior code of Budo. So now you had Karate Do, not just Karate Do, the way. This became a revolutionary thought that swept across all martial arts, and it put guardrails on the martial arts. Starting with judo, now jiu-jitsu had guardrails. It had a moral code that allowed people to practice these arts with the responsibility to be a person with loyalty, honor, respect, discipline. All these things, these guardrails were placed there, and it restored and took jiu-jitsu from a place of being looked down upon to an idea of elevating society, elevating people, and self-development. In our world today, we find that the arts have been removed and are being removed with the MMA craze and some of the cool and culturally embracing forms of practice that jiu-jitsu and BJJ have been bringing to the forefront. On the internet today, you find a lot of different discussions on podcasts and websites about some of the problems that we're seeing in BJJ and also in so-called traditional martial arts, where there is now more desire to have a cool element in the school gym dojo. There's more desire to have a competition-based, skill-based idea of training as opposed to honor, respect, discipline, and the warrior code, the guardrails that were placed around martial arts to create a moral barrier against misuse and abuse of people, creating a toxic, I'll use quotations, a toxic culture in training halls. This is seemingly being a problem because the martial arts are losing the arts. They're becoming more MMA oriented than we know the martial arts to be in its history. We want to ask Sensei Biddle to make some comments upon that and really look at this question of, are the martial arts losing the arts, and what would that mean as we look at the generations coming down the pike? Sensei Biddle.
Yeah, it's like what John said, martial arts. If it's just martial, which means military. So the segue to that is military, the function of the military has one simple function: to kill and destroy. So if that is the single goal of the system, is just fighting, then that's your singular task. And that's okay. Like I've said before, I don't care about what people do. I'm just trying to give alternative ideas and insights into other aspects of the thing as a whole. So if your primary goal is fighting, then that's what you are. So here's what happens with that, and this is what you're seeing, and this is it's a one-way street. Because a couple of things immediately, if your ultimate goal is fighting, then that's what you spend your time doing in your class. You're learning to fight. I know you learn some techniques, you learn how to punch and how to kick and all that. Sure, that's fine. But once you do that, the sooner the whole idea is, as soon as I learn this, I want to start beating and punching and kicking somebody. So what attitude does that create? Well, it makes me a fighter. Yeah, I know. You're right. It does. That's what you are. You're becoming a fighter. If that's your goal, then and your idea is to compete and enter the ring and to fight at higher levels and compete and maybe go up the ranks and all that and all the things that go with it, then more power to you. I love sport, so I don't look down on any of that. And also with like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, its aspect is fighting. Its only aspect is fighting. Now, I'm not going to say that it doesn't have a character building effect or can't, or a health effect, or all these things that I know would come back as and that's fine. But when your main focus, and this is really simple, when you go to class and what you do is fight, that's what you are. And you can't argue with me on that. That is what you are. That is your goal. That is your purpose. That is your function. So when you introduce that concept into the studio, I'm not going to call it a dojo because it's not. Or the gym. You are fighting, and now what are you going to attract? What is your marketing 101? What is your demographic? You know the answer. Fighters, people who want to fight. And what's going to come with that? Bullies, cheaters, and that doesn't mean there's not good, honest people in there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying think about the concept of what it's approaching. What is its marketing demographic? You're not getting women. Now, they might be a handful. For a while, but as soon as they're wrestling some guy and they get their shoulder ripped out of the socket, because a guy will do that, even if he's not trying hard. It's just a natural course of things. It'll happen. And then here's the deal. So now I know what they have. There's a problem in both MMA and MMA is the same application. If your goal is fighting, then those are the people that you are attracting. That is your market demographic. It's pure and simple. And that means you have conflict. You are welcoming conflict. And as John was saying, like in some of there's dojos now, or studios are complaining where you're getting people injured or getting bullies, and they're trying to control this aspect of it. Well, you're not. You're simply not, because all you're going to do, one of two things. The more you control it, the smaller your class gets. And then economically, you go out. You can't produce the numbers of students required to operate a successful business, if that's your goal. So the more this, and then the other thing that you're hearing a lot about now is just simply pure injuries. People getting their shoulders dislocated, their knees broke, ankles broke, elbows, all these tendons and things. Anytime you're putting the majority of your effort into fighting something, you're introducing the element of potential injury. It's absolutely unavoidable. There's no way that you're going to not sustain some sort of soft tissue injury or even a bone, which is even more scary. The thought of someone's knee snapping or something. Now, I know everybody says, well, it doesn't happen that often, but I watch enough videos where I know it's a thing. And here's another sidebar to that. This is also something to think about. So, what is the best way to avoid injury in BJJ or MMA? You have to lift weights, and you have to do things outside of your style, of your system. So you have to support that system with an external system. It's not. It's optional, but only if you want to stay healthy. So there's two things that I've heard about not getting hurt in like BJJ and MMA is the same thing. One, don't roll or fight someone that's a bully. Well, are you going to have that choice? What are you going to go up to your instructor? I'm not going to fight him because he's stronger and badder than me. I'll go shut up and kick, fight it out. Now maybe some instructors will recognize the bully and throw them out, but will they? And so the number one way to prevent that, besides not fighting that type of person, is to support your body with strength training and exercises and fitness level things. Well, now you've adopted another sport. I'm not saying that's wrong. That's okay. Again, if your idea is that, then more power to you. Do it. It's fine. It's okay. But if you want sustainability and health and the ability to practice this when you're my age, good luck. Because you're introducing elements that are going to encourage you not to do that. I could give you another tangent on that. Is if you look at, again, I'm not criticizing this. This is just an observation, a statement. When CrossFit came out in the fitness industry, it became a big deal. Oh, everybody's got to be CrossFit, all this. And that's fine. I've always believed in cross training. I have interval training workouts I wrote back in the early 80s before it was even heard of. High intensity interval training before anybody ever even thought of it. But if we're doing CrossFit, the thing about CrossFit that happened was more, faster, stronger. When you incorporate those three concepts into throwing a weight over your head, you have one-way street to an injury. for example, like the pull-ups they do, the pull-ups where they do the swings and pull themselves up, and they try to do them faster, harder, in less time, blah blah blah. Everyone that's done, and you need to, if you want to know this, check this out for yourself. Everyone that has participated in those type of pull-ups have what they call little micro tears. They call them lap tears in their muscles in their shoulders. They're scarring tissue. They're scars. That happens. It's always going to happen. You're not going to avoid that because your body is not designed to do that movement at that speed, at that much power. So back to the martial arts. When we introduce this element of fighting, we introduce all that fighting means. What we lose on the other side of that is the art of it, the martial art, which means something that you can practice, something that you can grow from. Are you growing as a human being in character in fighting? That's a question for you to ask yourself. I'm not going to give it. I don't know that answer for you. I can tell you what I think, but it doesn't really matter. You have to ask yourself, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? What do I want here? I want to be the badass. Okay. Then be the badass. Then you're probably going to be the bully in the gym. And either they're going to get rid of you or you're going to hurt somebody and no one's going to wrestle with you. I think the art part, I don't know what you do. I don't have the answer for it. So I don't know. The art part of BJJ, I think it can be rescued. I really do. Because when I watch a lot of it, I'm interested in all arts, as I said before. So I like to watch what they do. It's genius level stuff that they developed. The leveraging, the moving, the way they hold their weight, the way they maintain center of gravity, all those concepts that they have are brilliant. They all share a common core, ultimately, though, with all martial arts. Remember, we've talked about where it all ends or where it all starts. It's all the same thing. So it's brilliant stuff. It's great if you could figure out how to make it functional without applying that's the funny thing. That's the argument of why it's good, is because it's real. It's fighting. We're not doing kata because we're actually doing what we're supposed to do, but you're not, because you have rules and compliance issues and things like that. So it's not. But when you introduce the fighting aspect, it's hard to then pull back and get to the art part of it. You need something new. You need a Jigoro Kano in BJJ to bring you back the art. Because the one big criticism of karate and kung fu and the traditional martial arts over the years is kata doesn't teach you to fight. And you're right, it does not. In of itself, it does not. It teaches you how to move, but we've talked about this. It teaches you all those supplementary things that go along with what we'll call the art side of it, where I can do kata and do all my things, and it's an exercise, it's mental stimulation, it's meditation, it's self-defense, it's moving all my joints, it's all these things. I can do this every day, all day, anytime, everywhere. I don't need a gym. I don't need a partner. That was one of the things that was most attractive to me in the martial arts, because it was me. I didn't have to have a group of guys that met up and played basketball with, and you get a basketball league and then half of them don't show up. Or you have a bowling league and you're bowling and half of them don't show up and you lose it. A weightlifting partner that was working with you and then they don't show up. I had to learn to do this stuff on my own. And when I found the martial arts, I found that my skill was only related to me. Now, we sparred, we did all that stuff, so sure, we tested that, and that's all part of it, but that's part of the practice of it, but it's not the art of it. So, MMA, same thing. You've got fighting and you've got technique, sure, but you don't practice. What do you do at home? I punch the bag. You have bags, That's no different than me doing kata. Bags don't hit back, Bruce Lee said. So, You're not doing anything. Shadow boxing. If you're shadow boxing, you're doing kata. Thank you. If you're practicing your punches, you're practicing your techniques, you're practicing your positioning, you're doing kata. Again, thank you. But that's not what you want to do. You want to be in the ring and you want to hit somebody, then that's fighting, and that's limiting your concept of what the art is. The only way to expand this, and this applies, and I'm going to speak now to all karate studios and all kung fu, all classes, where if your emphasis is in sparring, then you're also missing the mark. In relationship to this topic of martial art, not, again, I know I keep repeating myself because I really want people to understand I'm not trying to criticize anything, I'm just making observations. If your focus is fighting, then that's your focus. What are you saying to your student when they come in the door and they see fighting, 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 fighting? If you attracted that person and that's what they want, that's what you get. And you're going to get the same thing. I have seen that in schools. I have seen those people. I have had some of those people as students. With me, they didn't last long. Because one, I would make sure I'd spar them at every opportunity in class and show them what they're at. And then also I found that I realized that they don't like the other fluff. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm labeling it something.
Quote unquote fluff.
Yeah. They don't like all the kata, the forms, and all that stuff because they're missing the concept. So if you're a martial arts school, a traditional karate school, let's put that in quotes because I don't know how many of those exist anymore, and your emphasis in sparring, then that's what you're doing. You have to bring your art back. So my appeal in all this, and this is I think what John was alluding to, is what we saw happening with jiu-jitsu and budo and the samurai class where they're gone. You're going to be gone. It is a fad. It is a phase. It will not sustain itself. It will not sustain itself economically, and it will not sustain itself over time. The martial arts are thousands of years old. They outdate everything, and they've been punching, kicking, and grappling in that whole period of time. So nothing is new. Nothing is new. Only thing that's changed is what we have put as an emphasis. And is that where we want to go as a society? Because we've talked about that in our video on self-defense. Is that what we want? We're not fighting anymore. You know, you hope that you can prepare yourself, but if you're wanting to fight, then you're just out there fighting, and that's what you do, and that's what you are, and that's the one that comes into the gym that is going to hurt somebody, and the only way you can prevent that is you got to manage that. So if you're this type of school, you've got to be on top of that and change that and figure out how. Ask yourself. I'm going to leave this. This is the last thing I'm going to say on this. At the end of the day, sit down, ask yourself, what am I wanting to accomplish? What is my goal in doing this and teaching this, and what am I getting?
You know, there's so much there to talk about. I mean, because from what you're saying, and I even want to preface my statement with this, because this is not just BJJ. Don't think we're beat up on BJJ. That's just the main topic that you see online, because that's the most popular system that people are talking about now. If you remember the first Karate Kid movie back in the 80s, the topic was this kid finding this master that was a janitor or something like that, and, you know, studying with him and, you know, privately at his home. But there was this dojo where all the quote unquote cool kids went, where they were focused mainly on competition and tournaments, and the main student was a bully who was beating up kids at the school and beating up Daniel-san, quote unquote. But again, this whole concept of losing our way in martial arts, or losing the way, and having an emphasis on fighting, and where the bully is the top student and you're not going to get rid of him because, you know, he's making you win all these trophies. That kind of dynamic is actually the way this whole Karate Kid franchise started. I'm not sure if you've been noticing, but it came back on Netflix and has a whole series where people are,
series now.
yeah, it's reignited because that same topic is just as poignant today because it's even more true today about this stuff happening. But again, what do you do? I mean, you made an excellent point that, many times people come to dojo studios, gyms, and they look at the arts, the concept of character development, the concept of loyalty, honor, respect, discipline, so on and so forth, and the talks that a teacher would have with the students as quote unquote fluff. They just want to get to sparring. They just want to learn new techniques. They want to, hit the bag. They want to fight. They want to compete. And again, if someone wants to compete, that's nothing inherently wrong. But if that's your focus, it's taking you in a whole nother direction, especially if you want to remove the guardrails.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, John, because that happened in my schools. I had kids and students, and when I was a student and learning, everybody wanted to get to sparring. And that did happen. But because my instructor and myself, when I was instructor, did not make that the emphasis, those people were typically weeded out over time. They lost interest and moved on. So we would get those people in, and everybody, all of us, me too, initially, I want to get to sparring, sparring's fun. But the more you progress, the less that becomes the priority. And that happens naturally through an evolution of the school as a student through the process of time, if that's not your emphasis. And that's dependent on the instructor. Mm-hmm. When my son wanted to learn karate, I was no longer teaching, and I found it was difficult for me to teach my own son. So I realized I did not want to do that. So I took him to even another style. I went to several schools to look around. What did I do? How did I judge this? What was I looking for? I would meet the head instructor, the owner, and I would also ask to attend class because I wanted to see what the other black belts were conveying. What was their attitude? What was their way of teaching? What were they emphasizing?
What was the culture of the school?
Exactly, because the culture of the school is reflected by the people that are learning it. And the higher level ones like the black belts. And this is a good advice to anybody wanting to go find a karate school. Don't just pick a school because it's cool. Go to several of them, but talk to the owner and let him explain what he does and all that stuff. But he's not going to give you what you want. He's going to sell you what he wants to sell you. Watch some classes. If he won't let you watch classes, then get out of there. If he lets you watch classes, watch the black belts, see how they teach, see how they interact. You will see what you need to see. And as a parent and as a martial arts instructor, I found a school where I'm like, okay, these black belts are well trained in all aspects of the art. And that's where I put my son in. You have to look at how it's being expressed. So this happened in our schools. We had guys that came in that wanted to spar, par, and we're all happy to do that. Everybody wants to do that. It's fun, exciting. But we never emphasize it, so you weed those out. But that's got to be done from the top.
You had made mention of the fact that looking at where everything is going with all these schools and how we're losing our way, pun intended, or losing the arts, that we may need another Jigoro Kano. And maybe we'll end with this concept. We'll throw this to you because from what you said, it has to change because it financially, from a business standpoint, it can't continue because if you have black belts or higher level students that are hurting people, are not loyal, no respect, no discipline, no honor, you create a toxic culture that families don't feel safe there sending their children. Women don't feel safe there. People that are not as athletically gifted don't feel safe. You can't sustain that. So it has to change. And you talked about another Jigoro Kano coming. I want to throw this to you and then we'll close there. Do you believe, since martial arts are so old, that basically when it comes to the martial arts, that this is like a cycle? The Bible says that there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that happened now has happened before. Do you think that these ebbs and flows of these cycles kind of just repeat themselves and that basically some martial arts die out because they don't change? And eventually things reset themselves and someone comes and brings us back to this proper idea of putting those guardrails back up. Then someone takes the guardrails down and then it goes to pot, and then someone brings the... Do you think that kind of is like a cycle? Do you think that happens over and over through history, where that kind of happens and cycles, and either it dies or it lives, depending on whether people put this recipe together? With no guardrails, it's going to go off the rails, as they say. Do you think that happens in history, and then it either corrects itself or it just dies? Or how do you think?
Yeah, no, that's exactly. Either corrects itself or goes extinct. I mean, that's the way nature works. If you don't adapt and evolve, then you go away. It's simple. If you look at the fitness industry, I've had the opportunity to grow up in the entire fitness craze. I worked at GNC for many years. I was part of the fitness nutritional supplemental development into the world, and the bodybuilding grew, and I've been around bodybuilders and the whole fitness craze, and I cannot list all of the fads and things that came and went. Taibo and Pilates. Now Pilates is a thing. Aerobicize was a thing, and all these different fads. CrossFit, everything has come and gone, and part of it is because we're always looking for something new and cool, and that's the human nature of it. But the only things that sustain and survive are the things that work and that allow continuance.
I guess we need to find those guardrails again. Otherwise, what we know as the martial arts will cease to exist, even for a time. It may re-find itself in some generation in the future if it keeps going the way it's going. You are with the University of Karate, and we've took a little bit of time here. We're hopeful that this has been helpful to you. It's opened your mind in some way. It's caused you to think. And we appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to be with us, to listen to this, whether you're driving, you're washing dishes, whatever you're doing. But please help us by subscribing to this channel. We're getting close to 1,000 subscribers, and we want to be at 2,000. But we need to get to 1,000. Keep subscribing, share this channel with other people, and also like this video, and keep the conversation going in the comments below. Make a comment, ask a question, even share something that you think that maybe we should have added that we didn't. Just keep the conversation going below. Sensei Biddle will make sure to answer the questions and keep the conversation going in the comment section. Again, you're with the University of Karate, and we appreciate you listening, and we'll look to see you next time.